I didn't believe in fate until the night I walked into the Crimson Hall and saw him watching me like I was already his. The gallery opening was supposed to be my escape. 2 hours away from the mounting bills, the threatening phone calls, the way my father's hands shook every time someone knocked on our door. My best friend Maya had dragged me there, insisting I needed to live a little before my 26th birthday disappeared into the same anxiety that had swallowed the last 3 months whole. "You look like you're attending a funeral, not an art show," Maya whispered, pressing a glass of champagne into my hand. The bubbles caught the light from the crystal chandeliers above us, refracting into 1,000 tiny stars. "Maybe I am," I said, taking a sip that tasted too expensive for someone whose electricity might get shut off next week. The gallery was a cathedral of wealth, white marble floors that clicked beneath designer heels, abstract paintings worth more than my childhood home, and people who moved through the space like they owned the very air they breathed. I felt like an imposter in my simple black dress, the nicest thing I owned that didn't come from a clearance rack. That's when I felt it. The weight of someone's attention, heavy as a hand pressed between my shoulder blades. I turned, champagne glass halfway to my lips, and the world narrowed to a single point of focus. He stood near the far wall, partially shadowed by one of the gallery's dramatic archways. Tall, well over 6 feet, with the kind of presence that didn't need announcement. His suit was midnight black, tailored so precisely it might have been painted onto his frame. Dark hair pushed back from a face that was all hard angles and controlled power. But it was his eyes that stopped my breath. Steel gray, cold as winter dawn. Fixed entirely on me. Not the casual glance of a stranger at a party. This was assessment, calculation. The way a wolf might watch a deer that had wandered too far from the herd. "Earth to Sarah," Maya said, following my gaze. Her hand tightened on my arm. "Oh no, 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 no." "What?" I couldn't look away from him. He hadn't moved, but somehow the distance between us felt like it was shrinking. "That's Dante Moretti." Maya's voice dropped to a whisper that trembled at the edges. "Sarah, we need to leave. Now." The name meant nothing to me, but the fear in Maya's voice meant everything. "Who?" "Not here." She was already pulling me toward the exit, but my feet felt rooted to the polished marble. Because he was moving now. Not quickly. That would have been less terrifying. He walked with the unhurried confidence of someone who knew the world would wait for him. People parted without seeming to realize they were doing it, conversations faltering as he passed. He was coming directly toward me. "Sarah, please," Maya begged. But it was too late. He was there, standing close enough that I could smell his cologne. Something dark and expensive. Cedar and smoke. This close, I could see a thin scar cutting through his left eyebrow, a mark of violence on an otherwise perfect face. "You drop this." His voice was low, textured like whiskey and gravel. He held out his hand. My phone. I hadn't even realized I'd lost it. "When had I—" "The entrance," he said, reading my confusion. "It fell from your purse. I've been waiting for the right moment to return it." My fingers trembled as I took it from him, our skin brushing for half a heartbeat. His hand was warm, which somehow surprised me. I'd expected him to be as cold as those winter eyes. "Thank you," I managed. "Serafina Winters." Not a question. He knew my name. Interesting choice coming here tonight. Ice flooded my veins. "How do you—" "Your father owes me a considerable amount of money." He said it conversationally, like we were discussing the weather. $247,000. Plus interest that accumulates daily. The gallery walls seemed to tilt. That number was impossible. Dad had said it was $50,000, that he'd borrowed from a private lender for Mom's medical bills, that he had it under control. I don't... My voice cracked. That can't be right. 3 months ago, your father came to me desperate. I gave him exactly what he asked for. Dante's expression didn't change, but something flickered in those gray eyes. He promised collateral. He lied. He's trying to pay you back. We both are. I have 2 jobs, and he's... Do you know what I do to people who lie to me, Serafina? The way he said my name, slow, deliberate, like he was tasting each syllable, made my skin prickle with something that wasn't entirely fear. Maya had abandoned me, I realized. She'd disappeared into the crowd, leaving me alone with this beautiful, terrible man. I can get you the money, I said, hating how small my voice sounded. I just need time. Time. He smiled, and it was the most frightening thing I'd seen all night. Everyone asks for time, but time has a cost, and your family's account is overdrawn. What do you want? The question hung between us, sharp as a blade. Dante reached out slowly, giving me time to step back. I didn't. His fingers brushed my jaw, tilting my face up to meet his gaze. His touch was surprisingly gentle, but the intensity in his eyes was anything but. I'll tell you what I want, Principessa. His thumb traced my lower lip, a gesture so intimate it stole my breath. Your father offered you as collateral the night he took my money. He said if he couldn't pay, I could have his daughter instead. The world stopped. He didn't mean... But even as I said it, I knew it was true. Knew it from the way Dad had been looking at me lately, guilty and desperate. Knew it from the way he'd encouraged me to come tonight. Said Maya would take me somewhere nice. He'd sold me. My own father had sold me. 6 months, Dante said softly. Come work for me. Live in my home. Follow my rules. At the end of that, time. Your family's debt is erased completely. And if I refuse? His hand dropped from my face, leaving my skin cold where he'd touched me. Then I collect my debt the traditional way. Your father's body will be found in the river by morning. Your mother will lose the house. And you... Those winter eyes drifted down, then back up. You'll spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder, knowing I'm waiting. My heart hammered so hard I thought it might shatter my ribs. This was insane. This man was dangerous, maybe evil. Everything in me screamed to run, to find a cop, to do anything but stand here negotiating my own captivity. But I thought of Dad's shaking hands, Mom's medical bills, the life I'd worked so hard to build crumbling to nothing. Just 6 months? My voice barely worked. 6 months, he confirmed. And Serafina? He leaned in close, his breath warm against my ear. If you try to run, I'll find you. If you try to fight me, I'll break you. But if you obey... His lips barely brushed my cheek, a ghost of a kiss that sent lightning down my spine. I'll make sure you enjoy every moment of your servitude. He pulled back, straightened his already perfect tie, and smiled. A real smile this time. All sharp edges and dark promise. My driver will collect you tomorrow at 8 a.m. Bring whatever you'd like, but know that I'll provide everything you need. He handed me a black business card with nothing but a phone number embossed in silver. Don't be late, Principessa. I hate waiting for what's mine. Then he was gone, disappearing into the crowd like smoke, leaving me standing alone in the middle of the gallery with my world shattered around me and a business card burning in my hand. I looked down at it, at that single phone number, and realized with terrifying clarity. Tomorrow morning, I was going to become the property of Dante Moretti. And God help me, some dark part of me was curious what that would feel like. I didn't sleep that night. How could I, knowing that sunrise would bring a black car and a man who owned my next 6 months? I sat on my childhood bed, surrounded by boxes I'd started packing at 3 a.m., and watched the sky bleed from black to gray to the pale gold of dawn. My phone buzzed. Not a call, a text from an unknown number. The car is outside. Don't make me come get you. My hands shook as I picked up my single suitcase. I'd packed practical things. Jeans, sweaters, my laptop, the photo of Mom before she got sick. Everything else felt irrelevant in the face of whatever waited for me in Dante Moretti's world. Dad was passed out on the couch when I crept downstairs. He reeked of whiskey and failure. Part of me wanted to scream at him, to make him look at what he'd done. But the larger part, the part that remembered him reading me bedtime stories and teaching me to ride a bike, that part just felt hollow. I left a note on the kitchen table. I'm handling it. Take care of Mom. The black Mercedes idling outside looked like it cost more than our house. The driver, a man built like a concrete wall with a scar bisecting his jaw, took my suitcase without a word. He opened the back door, and I slid into leather seats that probably cost more than my monthly salary. We drove in silence through the morning traffic, leaving behind my neighborhood's worn buildings and tired streets. The city transformed around us. Taller buildings, cleaner sidewalks, the kind of wealth that didn't announce itself because it didn't have to. Finally, we turned onto a private road lined with old-growth trees. At the end stood gates that looked like they belonged to a fortress. They opened silently, and my breath caught. Dante's home wasn't a house. It was a statement. 3 stories of stone and glass that somehow managed to look both ancient and modern, like a castle that had been dragged into the present day. Manicured gardens stretched in every direction, and a fountain carved from black marble dominated the circular driveway. Water cascaded from the mouth of a stone lion, the sound somehow ominous in the morning quiet. "Welcome home, Miss Winters," the driver said. His first words to me. Home. The word felt like a curse. The front doors opened before we reached them. A woman in her 50s with steel-gray hair and an expression that could cut glass stood waiting. Her black dress was immaculate, her posture military straight. "I'm Mrs. Chen, the house manager," she said crisply. "Mr. Moretti is in a meeting but expects to see you in his study at 9 o'clock sharp. I'll show you to your room." I followed her through halls that belonged in a museum. Original artwork lined the walls, not prints, but actual paintings that probably cost more than I'd earn in my lifetime. The floors were marble-veined with gold, and the ceilings soared high enough to make me feel impossibly small. "Rules," Mrs. Chen said as we climbed a grand staircase. "You do not enter Mr. Moretti's private wing without permission. You do not leave the grounds without his approval. You do not speak to anyone about what you see or hear in this house. Meals are served at 8, 1, and 7. You will dress appropriately for dinner." She glanced at my worn jeans with obvious disapproval. "What exactly does he expect me to do here?" My voice echoed in the cavernous space. "Whatever he tells you to do." She stopped at a door on the second floor and pushed it open. "Your room." It wasn't a room. It was a suite larger than my entire apartment. A 4-poster bed dominated the space, draped in silk the color of champagne. French doors opened onto a balcony overlooking the gardens. The bathroom, visible through an open doorway, featured a clawfoot tub and more marble. A prison, I reminded myself. A beautiful prison. "Someone will come to take you to Mr. Moretti's study at 9, Mrs. Chen said. Then she was gone, the door clicking shut behind her with a finality that made my chest tight. I had 45 minutes. I should have unpacked or explored or tried to understand what I'd walked into. Instead, I stood at the balcony doors and stared out at the gardens, at the high walls barely visible through the trees, and wondered if I'd made the worst mistake of my life. A knock at 8:55. A young man with careful eyes who introduced himself as Marco led me through more hallways, down to the first floor, to a door made of dark wood that looked heavy enough to stop bullets. He knocked twice, then opened it without waiting for a response. "Miss Winters, sir." "Thank you, Marco." That voice. Even without seeing him, it raised goosebumps on my skin. I stepped inside, and the door closed behind me with a soft click. Dante's study was exactly what I'd expected. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a desk that looked like it had been carved from a single piece of ebony, leather chairs positioned near a fireplace where flames crackled despite the mild weather. But it was the wall behind his desk that made my breath catch. Screens, at least a dozen of them, showing various rooms throughout the house, the gardens, the gates. A security system that would make a paranoid dictator proud. He sat behind his desk, jacket off, sleeves rolled to his elbows, revealing forearms roped with muscle and marked with ink I couldn't quite make out. He was reading something on his laptop, and for a moment, he didn't look up. When he finally did, those winter eyes pinned me in place. Punctual. Good. He closed the laptop and leaned back in his chair. "Come here, Serafina." I moved forward on legs that felt uncertain, stopping a few feet from his desk, close enough to see the dark circles under his eyes that makeup would never hide. Had he slept as poorly as I had? Closer. I took another step, then another, until I stood directly before him, the massive desk the only thing between us. "Do you know why you're really here?" he asked softly. "To pay my father's debt." "No." He stood, and I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. "You're here because the moment I saw you in that gallery, I knew I had to have you. The debt was just convenient timing." The confession stole my breath. "I don't understand." "You will." He moved around the desk with that same predatory grace, each step deliberate. 6 months, Serafina. 6 months of learning to be mine. "I'll never be yours," I said, but my voice shook. He smiled. That dangerous, beautiful smile. "We'll see." He reached out, and this time I did step back. His expression darkened. "Rule number 1, he said, his voice dropping to something cold and absolute. "When I reach for you, you don't pull away. When I speak, you answer. When I give you an order, you obey. Understood? And if I don't? Then I'll teach you. And trust me, Principessa, you won't enjoy my lessons." He moved forward again, and this time when he reached for me, I forced myself to stand still. His fingers curled around my wrist, his thumb finding my racing pulse. "Your heart is pounding," he murmured. "Tell me, is that fear or something else?" I couldn't answer. Didn't know how to put into words the way his touch made my skin feel electric and wrong and somehow necessary all at once. His other hand came up, fingers threading through my hair, tilting my face toward his. We were inches apart, close enough that I could see flecks of darker gray in his eyes, could feel the heat radiating from his body. 6 months, he whispered against my lips, and by the end, you'll beg me not to let you go. Then he released me, stepped back, and returned to his desk as if nothing had happened. "Mrs. Chen will bring you your schedule. You start tomorrow." He opened his laptop again, dismissing me. "Oh, and Serafina? That door?" He pointed to a door I hadn't noticed, partially hidden behind a bookshelf. "It connects to my bedroom. I suggest you remember that before you try anything foolish." My blood turned to ice. Sweet dreams, Principessa. I spent my first 3 days in Dante's mansion like a ghost. Present, but not really there. Mrs. Chen's schedule kept me occupied with meaningless tasks. Organizing his library, cataloging artwork, attending dinners where I sat at the far end of a table long enough to seat 20, while Dante worked through paperwork and ignored my existence. Men in expensive suits came and went, their conversations stopping abruptly whenever I entered a room. I was a decoration. A pet he'd acquired and promptly forgotten about, which should have been a relief. Instead, it felt like waiting for a storm I could see gathering on the horizon but couldn't outrun. On the fourth night, everything changed. I couldn't sleep. Again. The bed was too soft, the room too quiet, my mind too loud with questions about what Dante actually wanted from me. At 2 a.m., I gave up and pulled on a robe over my sleep shirt, thinking I'd find the kitchen and make tea. The mansion at night was different. Shadows pooled in corners that seemed perfectly normal during the day. My footsteps echoed on marble floors despite my attempts at silence. I got lost twice before finding the kitchen. A massive space of stainless steel and dark granite that looked like it belonged in a restaurant. I was waiting for water to boil when I heard it. A sound that didn't belong in the perfect silence of this perfect house. A groan, low and rough, coming from somewhere deeper in the mansion. Every instinct screamed at me to go back to my room, to mind my own business, to remember that curiosity in a place like this could be deadly. But something in that sound, pain, maybe, or exhaustion, pulled at me. I followed it through corridors I hadn't explored, past rooms with closed doors, until I found myself in front of a partially open door. Light spilled through the crack, warm and flickering. Candlelight, I realized. Another groan, followed by a harsh exhale. I pushed the door open. It was a bathroom unlike any I'd ever seen, more like a spa, with the same black marble from the fountain outside. But I barely noticed the luxury because all I could see was Dante. He sat shirtless on the edge of an enormous bathtub, his back to me, head bowed. His shoulders were broader without the suit jacket, his back a landscape of muscle and ink. A massive tattoo of a phoenix rising from flames, so detailed I could see individual feathers. But it was the blood that made my breath catch. A gash across his ribs, still seeping red. Bruises blooming purple and black across his side. His knuckles split and swollen. "I know you're there." His voice was rougher than usual, tight with pain. "If you're smart, you'll leave." I should have. God knows I should have. Instead, I stepped inside and closed the door behind me. "You're hurt." Observant. He didn't turn around. "Go away, Serafina." "Let me help." "I don't need help from a debt payment." The words stung, but I'd spent 4 days being invisible. Something about seeing him like this, vulnerable, bleeding, human, made me braver than I had any right to be. I moved to the counter where medical supplies lay scattered. Gauze, antiseptic, butterfly bandages. Someone had started treating him and stopped. Or he'd tried to do it himself and given up. "I was a nursing student," I said, gathering what I needed. "Before Mom got sick and I had to drop out. I know what I'm doing." "Of course you were." Something that might have been amusement colored his tone. The universe does enjoy its ironies. I approached slowly, giving him time to order me away. He didn't. When I knelt beside him, close enough to see the way his jaw clenched against pain, he finally turned his head to look at me. Up close, the damage was worse. A cut above his eyebrow, another along his cheekbone. He'd been in a fight, a serious one. "What happened?" I asked softly. "Business." He watched me with those winter eyes, unreadable. "Not your concern. You're bleeding on very expensive marble. I'm making it my concern." The corner of his mouth twitched. Almost a smile. "Careful, Principessa. I might start to think you care." "I don't. I soaked a cloth in antiseptic. But if you die, my father's debt still exists, and I'd rather not find out who inherits it. This will sting." I pressed the cloth to his ribs, and his entire body went rigid. A muscle jumped in his jaw, but he didn't make a sound, didn't pull away, just watched me with an intensity that made my hands shake. "You should have been a nurse," he said after a moment. "You're gentle." "You should have been something other than a criminal," I countered, carefully cleaning the wound. "You're too smart for this." "What makes you think I'm smart?" Your library. The books aren't for show. They're worn, read, loved. Philosophy, poetry, history, military strategy. I glanced up at him. You're educated. You chose this life. Why? He was quiet so long I thought he wouldn't answer. I began applying butterfly bandages, pulling the edges of the gash together with practiced precision. My father was a good man, he finally said, his voice distant. He worked an honest job, paid his taxes, believed in the system. When I was 12, he witnessed a crime, testified in court like a good citizen. 2 weeks later, they murdered him in front of our house while I watched from my bedroom window. My hands stilled. Dante! The police did nothing. The courts did nothing. The system my father believed in failed him, failed us, failed everyone who doesn't have power. His eyes met mine, and they were cold again, glacial. So I decided to become the thing good men fear. Because fear, Serafina, is the only honest currency in this world. I finished bandaging his ribs in silence, processing his words. This close, I could smell copper and smoke, and beneath it, that cedar cologne. Could feel heat radiating from his skin. Could see the way his breathing had changed, slower now, deeper. Your knuckles, I said, reaching for his hand. He let me take it, let me examine the split skin and swollen joints. The other guy looks worse, he murmured. I don't doubt it. I cleaned each cut carefully, aware of how large his hand was in mine, how many scars marked his skin. Evidence of a violent life. Is this what the next 6 months will be? You coming home broken and bleeding? Sometimes. Does that frighten you? I looked up at him, at this beautiful, damaged, dangerous man who'd bought me like property, but was letting me touch him with unexpected tenderness. Yes, I admitted, but not the way you think. Something shifted in his expression. Surprise, maybe, or recognition. His free hand came up slowly, giving me time to pull away. I didn't. His fingers traced my jaw, just like that first night in the gallery. You should be terrified of me, he said softly. I am. Then why are you still here? Because you're bleeding, and I'm too stubborn for my own good, and... I stopped, not sure how to finish that sentence. And... His thumb brushed my lower lip, and my breath hitched. And I'm starting to think the monster everyone's afraid of is just a man who learned too young that the world is cruel. The air between us felt electric, charged with something I didn't have a name for. His eyes dropped to my mouth, and for a heartbeat, I thought he might kiss me. Wanted him to, despite every logical reason I shouldn't. Instead, he released me and stood, wincing slightly. Go to bed, Serafina. Dante? Go! Not cruel, but final. Before I do something we'll both regret. I gathered the medical supplies with shaking hands and moved toward the door. But at the threshold, I turned back. He stood by the window now, staring out at the dark gardens, his reflection ghost-like in the glass. In the candlelight, with his wounds exposed and his guard momentarily down, he looked almost fragile. For what it's worth, I said quietly, I'm sorry about your father. He didn't turn around. Go to bed, Principessa. This time I did. But as I walked back through the silent mansion to my gilded cage, I realized something that should have terrified me. I was starting to see Dante Moretti as human, and that was far more dangerous than seeing him as a monster. The breakfast table was set for 2. I stood in the doorway of the dining room, staring at the place setting across from Dante's usual seat at the head of the table. For a week, I'd eaten alone in the kitchen or in my room. This felt like a summons. Dante looked up from his phone, and our eyes met. In the morning light streaming through the windows, I could see the bruises had faded to yellow-green. The cut above his eyebrow was healing clean. My work. Sit, he said. Not a request. I took the chair across from him, hyper-aware of how the silk blouse Mrs. Chen had left in my room clung to my skin. She'd stopped providing jeans and sweaters 3 days ago, replacing them with clothes that felt like armor disguised as elegance. "You've been avoiding me," Dante said, pouring coffee into my cup with unexpected domesticity. "You told me to go to bed. I've been following orders." "I told you to leave my bathroom. I didn't tell you to become invisible again." He set the carafe down with precise control. "We need to talk." My stomach nodded. "About what?" "About the fact that you're now a target." The words hung in the air like smoke. I set down the coffee cup before my shaking hands could betray me. "What do you mean?" "You were photographed. At the gallery, getting into my car, entering this property." He pulled out his phone and slid it across the table. "This was sent to me last night." The photo showed me on the balcony of my room, backlit by the bedroom lamps, clearly visible. The angle suggested it had been taken from outside the property, probably with a telephoto lens. Someone had been watching. "Who?" My voice came out smaller than I intended. "The Volkov family. Russian Bratva operating out of the east side." His jaw tightened. "We've been at war for 6 months over territory disputes. They think you're my weakness." We're not. I couldn't finish the sentence because I didn't know what we were anymore. "It doesn't matter what we are. It matters what they think we are." He took the phone back, his knuckles still healing from whatever fight had brought him home bleeding. "As of now, you don't leave this property without me. You don't go near windows after dark. And you definitely don't wander the mansion at 2 a.m. treating wounded criminals." Heat crept up my neck. "You were hurt. I've been hurt before. I'll be hurt again." But something in his eyes softened fractionally. "That's not the point. The point is that every moment you spend visible, you paint a larger target on your back. And I can't." He stopped abruptly. Reset. "I won't have your death on my conscience." How thoughtful, considering you're the reason I'm here in the first place. "True." He leaned back in his chair, studying me, with that unnerving intensity. "But you're here now, which makes you mine to protect, whether either of us likes it or not." Mine. The word did something complicated to my pulse. Before I could respond, the dining room door burst open. A man strode in, younger than Dante, maybe late 20s with the same dark hair but warmer eyes. His expensive suit couldn't quite hide the gun holster under his jacket. "We've got a problem," he said, then stopped short when he saw me. "Oh, you didn't mention you had company." "Luca, this is Serafina." Serafina, my younger brother Luca, also known as the man who doesn't understand the concept of knocking. Luca's eyes widened with recognition. "Wait, this is the girl? The one who—" He caught Dante's warning look and course-corrected smoothly. "Nice to meet you. Sorry for the dramatic entrance. What's the problem?" Dante's tone shifted to pure business. "The shipment at the docks. It's been compromised. Someone tipped off the feds, and now we've got agents swarming the warehouse. Victor's crew is claiming ignorance, but—" "Victor Volkov." Dante stood abruptly. "How convenient. Hours after they photographed my house." "That's what I thought." Luca glanced at me, then back to his brother. "We need to move. Now." Dante's hand went to his phone, fingers flying across the screen. "Call Marco and Alessio. Tell them to—" The lights went out. For a heartbeat, the room plunged into absolute darkness. Then emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in eerie red. "Basement. Now." Dante's hand found mine in the darkness, his grip iron strong. "Both of you." "Dante, what's happening?" My voice shook despite my best efforts. "They're here." The words had barely left his mouth when glass shattered somewhere in the house. Shouting erupted from multiple directions. Gunfire, distant but unmistakable, cracked through the air. Dante pulled me toward a door I'd never noticed, concealed in the wallpaper pattern. Luca was already there, gun drawn, face transformed from charming to lethal in an instant. "The panic room," Dante said, pushing me toward stairs that descended into darkness. "There's a secure door at the bottom. Get inside and don't open it for anyone but me. Understood? What about you? This is my house, my family, my war." He cupped my face in both hands, his thumbs brushing my cheekbones. The gesture was tender and terrifying. "Go, Serafina, please." More gunfire, closer now. Someone screamed. "I can't just leave you two." "You can, and you will." He kissed my forehead, quick and fierce. "Stay alive, Principessa. That's an order." Then he was gone, disappearing back into the chaos with Luca at his heels. The door to the hidden stairs swung shut, and I was alone in the red-lit stairwell with the sounds of warfare filtering through the walls. I ran. The stairs seemed endless, spiraling down into the earth. My bare feet slapped against cold concrete. Behind me, the house erupted in violence. More gunfire, crashes, men shouting in languages I didn't understand. The panic room door was steel, vault-like, with a biometric scanner. My hands shook so badly I could barely press my thumb to the reader. How did it already have my... Of course. Dante had programmed it, had prepared for this. The door hissed open, and I stumbled inside. The room was surprisingly large, more like a luxury bunker than a cell. Monitors lined one wall, showing security feeds from throughout the property. I watched in horror as armed men in black tactical gear swarmed through rooms I'd walked through just hours ago. Mrs. Chen herding staff toward a safe room. Guards I'd never really noticed before engaged in brutal firefights. And there, in the main foyer, Dante. He moved like violence given human form. Precise, efficient, deadly. Every shot found its target. Every movement controlled. But there were so many of them, and more kept coming. Luca fought beside him, the brothers moving in perfect synchronization, covering each other's blind spots with the ease of long practice. I couldn't look away, couldn't breathe, could only watch as the man who'd bought me, imprisoned me, touched me with surprising gentleness, fought to protect everything he'd built. Then I saw her, a figure in black, moving through the kitchen toward the foyer, something in her hands that glinted metallic and wrong. A grenade. She pulled the pin. "No!" I screamed, though no one could hear me through the soundproof walls. The woman threw it in a perfect arc toward where Dante stood, his back turned, reloading his weapon. Time seemed to stop. Luca saw it first. Shouted something I couldn't hear. And then he moved, not away from the grenade, but toward it. Toward his brother. He slammed into Dante, sending them both sprawling. The explosion filled every screen with white light. When the image cleared, smoke obscured everything. I pressed my hands against the monitors, searching desperately for movement, for any sign that they'd survived. The smoke began to clear. Bodies littered the marble floors. The massive chandelier had crashed down, crystal shards everywhere. And there, in the center of the destruction, Dante, pushing himself up on shaking arms. Blood streaked his face, but he was alive. But beside him, Luca wasn't moving. Dante crawled to his brother, and even through the silent security feed, I could see him shouting Luca's name, shaking him, begging him to respond. On another monitor, the tactical team was retreating. They'd accomplished whatever they'd come to do. I didn't realize I was crying until tears blurred my vision. This was Dante's world. Violence and blood and people dying for scraps of power. This was what I'd walked into, what I'd be trapped in for 6 months. This was the price of my father's debt. And somehow, watching Dante cradle his brother's body, watching his empire crumble around him, all I could think was, I need to get to him. The all-clear signal came 47 minutes after the explosion. 3 short pulses of green light above the panic room door. I'd watched Dante explain it to his security team on the monitors, his voice flat and mechanical as paramedics worked on Luca in the background. My training kicked in, analyzing from a distance. Stable vitals, conscious but disoriented, probable concussion and internal bleeding. He was alive. They were both alive. But when I finally emerged from the bunker and saw the destruction firsthand, something in my chest cracked open. The foyer looked like a war zone. Shattered marble, blood spatters, the acrid smell of gunpowder and smoke. Bodies covered in sheets waited for removal. And in the center of it all, Dante sat on the bottom stair, elbows on his knees, face in his hands. He looked up when I approached. The blood had been cleaned from his face, but he couldn't hide the devastation in his eyes. This wasn't the controlled, dangerous man who'd bought me at a gallery. This was someone whose carefully constructed world had just been torn apart. "You should be in the panic room," he said hoarsely. "Luca?" I asked instead. "Surgery. They took him 20 minutes ago." He dragged a hand through his hair, leaving it disheveled. Ruptured spleen, broken ribs, possible skull fracture. But alive. Because he's an idiot who decided his brother was worth dying for. He saved your life. He shouldn't have had to. Dante stood abruptly, swaying slightly. I caught his arm without thinking, steadying him. He stared at my hand on his bicep like he'd forgotten what touch felt like. "You should hate me right now. This is my fault. All of it." "Yes," I agreed quietly. "It is." He flinched like I'd struck him. "But hating you won't help Luca recover. Won't clean this blood off the floors. Won't bring back the people who died tonight." I took a breath. "So what do we do now?" "We?" He looked at me like I'd spoken a foreign language. "There is no we, Serafina. You're collateral. A debt payment. Remember?" "Then why did you program my thumbprint into the panic room?" I challenged. "Why did you kiss my forehead and tell me to stay alive? Why are you looking at me right now like I'm the only solid thing in a world that's falling apart?" He opened his mouth, closed it. For the first time since I'd met him, Dante Moretti had no answer. The silence stretched between us, heavy with everything we weren't saying. "Mr. Moretti." Mrs. Chen appeared, her usually immaculate appearance disheveled, a cut above her eye. "The Volkov representative is on the phone. He says it's urgent." Dante's entire demeanor shifted. The vulnerability vanished, replaced by ice-cold fury. "Put him through to my study. And Mrs. Chen? Get the security footage compiled. Every angle. I want to see the face of every man who entered my home tonight." "Yes, sir." He turned back to me. "Go to your room. Lock the door. Don't come out until—" "No." The word hung between us like a grenade with the pin pulled. "Excuse me?" His voice dropped to something dangerous. "I said no." My heart hammered, but I held my ground. "You said yourself I'm a target now. Hiding in my room won't change that. They already know where I sleep, what I look like, that I matter to you whether either of us wants to admit it or not. You don't matter to me." Liar. I stepped closer, close enough to see his pupils dilate. "You're many things, Dante Moretti, but you're a terrible liar when it comes to this. To us. There is no us." "Then why are your hands shaking?" He looked down at his hands like they'd betrayed him. They were trembling, fine tremors he couldn't quite control. Battle aftermath, adrenaline crash, fear for his brother, humanity, breaking through the monster's mask. "I could have lost him tonight," Dante whispered. "My baby brother. The only family I have left. He threw himself on a grenade for me and His voice cracked. "I can't do this. Can't be responsible for another person dying because they got too close to me." "Is that what happened to your father?" His eyes snapped to mine, winter cold and furious. Don't. You said he died because he did the right thing. Because he was good in a world that punishes goodness. I refused to back down. But that's not the whole truth, is it? You blame yourself. Think if he'd been different, harder, meaner, more like you, he'd still be alive. Get out! Each word was carved from ice. No. Serafina, I'm warning you. Warn me all you want. Threaten me. Lock me up. But I'm not leaving you alone right now. Not when you look like you're about to shatter. Something in him broke. One moment he was standing rigid with fury. The next his hands were in my hair, tilting my face up, his forehead pressed against mine. Not a kiss. Something more desperate. More raw. Why? His breath ghosted across my lips. Why do you insist on being kind to a monster? Because I've seen the man underneath. My hands found his chest, felt his heart racing beneath my palms. And he's not nearly as terrifying as he wants everyone to believe. You're wrong. But he didn't pull away. I've done terrible things, Serafina. Things that would make you run screaming if you knew. I've killed. I've destroyed. I've built an empire on blood and fear. And tonight, people died because of choices I made. I know. I did know. Had watched it on the monitors, seen him move through his house like an avenging angel, efficient and deadly. And I should be terrified, should hate you, should be counting down the days until I can escape this place and never look back. But? His hands tightened in my hair. But when I saw that grenade, all I could think was, not him. When Lucas shoved you out of the way, all I felt was relief that you were safe. And right now, standing here in the ruins of your home with blood still wet on the floors, all I want... I stopped, terrified to finish the sentence. What do you want, Principessa? His voice was raw, broken open. I want to make sure you're okay. The truth tumbled out. I want to clean the cuts you're pretending don't hurt. I want to sit with you while you wait for news about Luca. I want, God help me, I want to be the person you don't have to be strong for. The confession hung between us, fragile and impossible. Dante pulled back just enough to look at me. Really look at me. His eyes searched my face like he was memorizing every detail, trying to understand how this had happened, how a debt payment had become something else entirely. You realize what you're saying? His thumb traced my jaw. If you stay. If you let yourself care about me. This. He gestured to the destruction around us. This becomes your life too. The violence, the danger, the constant fear that every goodbye might be the last one. I know. And you're still standing here. I'm still standing here. Something shifted in his expression. Wonder and fear and desperate hope all tangled together. His hand cupped my cheek with devastating gentleness. Serafina Winters, he murmured, you're going to be the death of me. Or maybe, I whispered back, I'll be what keeps you alive. His phone rang, shattering the moment. Viktor Volkov, the screen read, the man who'd sent an army to destroy everything Dante had built. Dante looked at the phone, then back at me. Go to my study. Wait for me there. Dante, please. Not an order, a request. I need to know you're somewhere safe while I handle this. Can you give me that? I nodded, unable to speak around the emotion clogging my throat. He pressed a kiss to my forehead. Gentle, lingering, full of promise and threat, and something that felt dangerously close to devotion. Then he answered the phone, and his voice transformed into something deadly. Victor, let's talk about the mistake you made tonight. I walked toward his study, my skin still burning where he'd touched me, my heart racing with the terrifying realization. Somewhere between the debt and the danger, between fear and fascination, I'd started falling for the devil himself. And there was no going back now. Dante's study felt different at night, with only the fireplace casting shadows that danced across the walls like restless spirits. I sat in one of the leather chairs, still wearing clothes splattered with dust from the explosion, and tried not to think about how everything had changed in the span of a few hours. The door opened 40 minutes later. Dante entered looking like violence barely contained. His jaw was set, his movements precise and controlled in that way that meant he was holding back fury with both hands. He went straight to the bar cart and poured 2 fingers of whiskey, downed it, then poured another. "Is Luca?" "Out of surgery. Stable." He didn't turn around. "He'll recover. Eventually." Relief flooded through me. "That's good. That's... Victor's dead." The words dropped into the room like stones into still water. I stared at his back, at the rigid line of his shoulders. "What?" "I had Marco put a bullet in his head 20 minutes ago." Dante finally turned, and his eyes were empty. Not cold. Empty. Like something vital had been scooped out. Along with his brother, his lieutenant, and the man who threw the grenade. Their bodies will be found in pieces across the city by morning. A message. My mouth went dry. "You killed them. I had them killed. There's a difference." He swirled the whiskey, watching the amber liquid catch the firelight. "In my world, Serafina, mercy is weakness. Victor attacked my home, hurt my brother, put you in danger. The only acceptable response is complete annihilation." But what? You thought I was different?" A bitter laugh escaped him. "I told you what I am. Showed you tonight exactly what my life looks like. And still you stood in that foyer and said you wanted to make sure I was okay. Like I'm something worth saving." "You are," I said quietly. "No." He set down the glass with deliberate care. "I'm exactly what everyone says I am. A killer. A monster. The thing parents warn their children about." He moved toward me, each step measured. "And you know what the worst part is? I don't even feel guilty about it. Victor tried to take what's mine, so I erased him from existence. That's who I am." I stood to meet him. "Then why do you look like you're falling apart?" "Because you looked at me like I was a man." The words exploded out of him. "In the foyer, in the bathroom the other night. Every time you touch me with those gentle hands like I'm something fragile that needs careful handling. You make me forget what I am. And that's dangerous. Maybe that's exactly what you need. Someone who sees past." "Stop." He grabbed my arms, not roughly but desperately. "You need to understand something. My father died because he was good. My mother drank herself to death because she couldn't live with what happened. Luca almost died tonight because he loves me enough to take a grenade. Everyone who gets close to me suffers. It's not a pattern. It's a law. I'm not afraid of you. You should be." His grip tightened. "Do you know what I did before I came here? I watched Marco torture information out of Victor's lieutenant. Listened to him scream for 2 hours. And I felt nothing. No remorse? No disgust? Nothing. I don't believe that." "Believe it." He released me abruptly, pacing like a caged animal. "This afternoon I researched your father. Did you know he didn't just borrow money for your mother's medical bills? He's a gambling addict. Has been for years. The medical expenses were maybe $20,000. The rest? Poker debts, sports betting, casino losses." The room tilted. "No," he said. He lied. Dante pulled out his phone, showed me bank statements, casino receipts, a paper trail of my father's addiction stretching back 5 years. He's been gambling away your mother's medication money, the savings for her treatment, everything. I couldn't breathe, couldn't process. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you deserve to know the truth about the man who sold you." His voice softened fractionally. "And because I need you to understand that everyone in this world, including me, is exactly as selfish and broken as your father. We all take, we all destroy. The only difference is I'm honest about it. Tears burned my eyes. You're trying to push me away. I'm trying to save you. From what? From me. The confession tore out of him. From caring about a man who's going to get you killed. From wasting your heart on someone who doesn't deserve it. From... He stopped, jaw working. From hoping this could be anything other than what it is. A transaction. 6 months. Then you walk away and forget I exist. And if I don't want to forget? The question hung between us, impossible and essential. Dante stared at me like I'd spoken in tongues. You can't mean that. Can't I? I moved closer, ignoring the warning in his eyes. You think showing me your darkness will make me run? I watched you fight tonight, Dante. Saw you kill without hesitation. And yes, it terrified me. But you know what I also saw? What? His voice was barely a whisper. I saw you making sure Mrs. Chen and the staff got to safety before yourself. Saw you covering Luca with your body even after he'd pushed you clear. Saw you check every fallen guard. And when you found one still breathing, you called the medic first before securing the perimeter. I touched his chest, felt his heart thundering. You're not heartless. You're just carrying so much guilt and fear that you've convinced yourself the monster is all you are. Serafina? My father's addiction doesn't change anything. The tears spilled over, but I didn't care. It hurts. God, it hurts knowing he lied. But it doesn't make you the villain in this story. You gave him a choice, money or his daughter. He chose money. You didn't force that. I exploited his desperation. Yes, and you also let me tend your wounds, program my thumbprint into your panic room, looked at me in that foyer like I was something precious. I stepped closer, close enough to feel his breath. You're trying to convince both of us that you're incapable of caring, but I don't believe you. You should. But his hand came up, fingers threading through my hair with heartbreaking gentleness. You should run from me, Principessa. As far and as fast as you can. What if I don't want to run? My hands found his face, feeling the tension in his jaw. What if I want to stay and figure out what this thing between us actually is? It's dangerous. I know. It's probably going to end badly. I know that too. Serafina. My name was a prayer and a curse on his lips. If I let myself want you, really want you, I won't be able to let you go when the 6 months are up. Then don't. The words unlocked something in him. His control shattered like glass. His mouth crashed into mine with desperate hunger, hands pulling me against him like he was drowning and I was air. The kiss was nothing like I'd imagined, not practiced or smooth, but raw and searching and achingly honest. I kissed him back with equal desperation, tasting whiskey and fear and hope on his lips. His hands mapped my body like he was memorizing every curve, every angle, like he was trying to prove to himself I was real. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead pressed against mine. "This is a mistake," he whispered. "Probably. You're going to regret this. Maybe. I'm still a monster." "Yes." I smiled through my tears. "But you're my monster now." He pulled back enough to look at me, searching my face. Whatever he saw there made something in his expression crack open, vulnerability and wonder and terrified hope all tangled together. "God help us both," he murmured, then kissed me again, softer this time. Slower, like he had all the time in the world to learn the shape of my mouth. When his phone buzzed, we both ignored it, but the second buzz made him pull away, check the screen. His expression darkened. "What is it?" "A message, from someone using Victor's phone." He showed me the screen. "Nice try. But Victor wasn't the one who wanted you dead." Check your home security feed from 3 months ago. Camera 7, 2:47 a.m. You're going to want to see who really set this in motion. Dante's hand shook as he pulled up the archived footage on his computer. The timestamp read 3 months ago, right when my father had come to him for money. Camera 7 showed the mansion's main gate, and there, clear as day, was a figure in the shadows. Dante zoomed in. My blood turned to ice. Because the person meeting with someone in a black sedan, the person who'd been talking to Victor's men months before the attack, the person who'd orchestrated everything, was my father. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, could only stare at the screen showing my father, the man who raised me, who taught me to ride a bike, who cried at my high school graduation, shaking hands with Victor Volkov's lieutenant in the shadows of Dante's gate. No, the word came out broken. That's not, he wouldn't. Dante replayed the footage, enhanced it. The timestamp was undeniable. 3 months ago, 2 weeks after my father had borrowed the money. The conversation lasted 4 minutes. My father handed over something, papers maybe, and received a thick envelope in return. He sold you twice. Dante's voice was carefully neutral, but I could hear the barely contained rage underneath. Once to me for debt relief, and once to Victor for... He clicked through more files, his expression darkening with each line. $50,000 and a promise of protection when Victor took over my territory. The room spun. I gripped the desk to stay upright. He was going to let them kill you. He was betting on it. Dante's jaw clenched. Victor promised to free you once I was dead. Your father would get his money, you'd come home, and everyone would believe he'd heroically rescued his daughter from the evil mobster. Oh God! Nausea rolled through me. That's why he didn't fight harder when you took me. Why he seemed almost relieved. He thought I'd be dead within weeks, and he'd come out looking like the concerned father. Dante closed the laptop with deliberate control. Except Victor failed. And now your father's about to realize he made a deal with the wrong devil. The implication hung heavy in the air. What are you going to do? My voice shook. What do you think I'm going to do? He turned those winter eyes on me, and they were cold again. Glacial. He conspired to have me murdered. Put you in the crossfire. Got my brother nearly killed. There's only one response to betrayal like that. Dante, please. Please what? He stood abruptly. Please show mercy to the man who sold his daughter, who gambled away his wife's medical fund, who orchestrated an attack that destroyed my home and almost killed Luca. His voice rose with each word. Give me one good reason why I shouldn't put a bullet in his head tonight. Because I'm asking you not to. The words stopped him cold. He's still my father, I continued, tears streaming freely now. He's an addict and a coward, and apparently a conspirator in attempted murder. But he's the man who sat beside my hospital bed for 3 days when I had pneumonia at 7, who worked double shifts to pay for Mom's first round of treatment, who... My voice broke. Who I still love, even though I hate him right now. Dante stared at me like I was speaking a foreign language. You're asking me to spare the man who tried to have me killed. I'm asking you not to make me watch you become the monster you're so convinced you are. I moved toward him, even though every instinct screamed to keep distance between us. You said everyone who gets close to you suffers. Prove yourself wrong. Show me the man I saw in the foyer tonight, the one who cares more than he wants to admit. Serafina, please. I took his face in my hands, forcing him to look at me. I'm not saying forgive him. I'm not even saying let him go unpunished. But don't kill him. Don't make me live with that knowledge. Don't prove him right about what you are. Something in his expression cracked. You're asking me to go against every instinct I have. I know. If word gets out that I showed mercy, It'll be seen as weakness. Other families will smell blood. I know that too. He doesn't deserve your protection. No, I agreed. But maybe you deserve the chance to be more than what everyone expects. The silence stretched between us, heavy with impossible choices. Finally, Dante closed his eyes. I can't believe I'm considering this. What are you considering? He pulled away, pacing to the window. Your father lives, but he leaves the city tonight. New identity, new life, somewhere far from here. He never contacts you, or your mother again, never gambles again. I'll have people monitoring him. If he so much as walks past a casino, the deal's off. He turned back to me, and he lives with the knowledge that his daughter is the only reason he's breathing, that she begged a monster to spare him. He'll agree to that? He doesn't have a choice. Dante pulled out his phone. Marco, I need you to pick up someone. Address incoming. Bring him here, alive. He paused. And Marco? Make sure he understands this is a mercy, not a negotiation. He hung up and looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. He'll be here in an hour. You'll say goodbye. Then he disappears forever. Thank you. The words felt inadequate. Don't thank me. His voice was rough. I'm not doing this because I've suddenly grown a conscience. I'm doing it because the thought of seeing that look in your eyes, the one that says I've become exactly what you feared, that's somehow worse than the reputation hit I'm about to take. Dante, you've changed something in me. He said it like an accusation. A month ago, I would have killed him without hesitation. Would have enjoyed it even. But now, all I can think about is how you touched my face and called me yours. How you kissed me like I was worth saving. He laughed bitterly. You've made me weak, Principessa. No. I moved to him, wrapped my arms around his waist from behind, felt him tense, then gradually relax into my touch. I've made you human. There's a difference. We stood like that until Marco called to say they were approaching. Dante gently extracted himself from my embrace, his hand lingering on mine for a moment before he let go. Wait here. I need to brief Marco and the others. He paused at the door. Serafina? What you're about to do, saying goodbye to your father forever, that's going to hurt. You don't have to be strong about it. I don't feel strong right now. Good, because the strong thing would be to let me kill him. What you're doing, that's something else entirely. Something I don't have a word for. Then he was gone, and I was alone with the weight of what was coming. 20 minutes later, the study door opened. My father stumbled in, flanked by 2 of Dante's men. He looked smaller than I remembered, older. His face was bruised, Marco's work, probably, and his eyes were wild with fear. Sarah? Relief flooded his features when he saw me. Thank God. I knew you'd... Don't. The word came out sharp. Don't you dare act like you're the victim here. His expression crumbled. Baby, I can explain. Victor said if I helped him, we'd both be free. You'd come home and Dante would be dead, along with how many others? His brother almost died tonight because of your deal. I was trying to save you. By putting me in the crossfire of a mob war? My voice rose. By gambling away Mom's medication money? By selling me twice to 2 different criminals and hoping they'd kill each other? He had no answer. Just stood there, a broken man who'd made broken choices. Dante entered then, his presence filling the room. Serafina asked me to spare your life. Against my better judgment, I agreed. You're leaving tonight. New city, new identity, new life. You contact your daughter or your wife. You gamble. You even think about stepping out of line. The deal is void. What about Teresa? Dad's voice cracked. My wife is sick. She'll be taken care of. Dante's tone was ice. Better than you ever did. Mrs. Chen will coordinate her continued treatment and living expenses. But you're dead to them. To everyone. You chose money and cowardice. Now you live with the consequences. My father turned to me, tears streaming down his face. Sarah, please, I'm your father. You can't. You stopped being my father the moment you shook Victor's hand. The words hurt to say, but they were true. Goodbye, Dad. I hope your new life is everything your gambling addiction promised it would be. Sarah. Get him out of here, Dante said quietly. Marco and the others dragged my father away. His protests echoed down the hallway until a door slammed, cutting them off. The silence that followed was deafening. I stood frozen in the middle of Dante's study, feeling like I'd just amputated part of myself. The tears came then, huge, gulping sobs that I couldn't control. Dante's arms came around me, strong and sure. He didn't tell me it was okay, didn't offer empty platitudes, just held me while I fell apart, one hand stroking my hair, the other pressed against my back. I've got you, he murmured. I've got you, Principessa. And somehow, in the arms of the man who'd bought me, in the ruins of everything I thought I knew, that was enough. Retry now. Generate the next chapter of script. Maintain consistent POV, pacing, and emotional intensity throughout. Keep the word count 1000, and strictly follow word count. I woke up in Dante's bed. Not my gilded cage on the second floor, but his actual bedroom. The private sanctuary he'd told me never to enter without permission. I didn't remember falling asleep, only crying until I had nothing left, wrapped in his arms while he murmured things in Italian I couldn't understand but felt in my bones. Morning light filtered through floor-to-ceiling windows, casting everything in shades of gray and gold. The room was surprisingly sparse for a man of his wealth. A massive bed with black silk sheets. A single painting, something abstract and violent in reds and blacks. A bookshelf filled with worn spines. And Dante, sitting in a chair beside the bed, watching me with those winter eyes. He hadn't changed clothes, hadn't slept from the looks of him. Just sat vigil while I fell apart. How long have you been there? My voice was raw from crying. All night. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. You cried in your sleep, kept calling for your mother. I couldn't. He stopped, reset. I stayed to make sure you were okay. I should have been embarrassed, should have felt vulnerable waking up in his bed, in his space, with my defenses stripped away. Instead, I felt something else entirely. Safe. Luca? I asked, pushing myself up. Awake. Asking for you, actually. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. Apparently, you're the hero who patched me up, and he wants to know if you make house calls. I should go see him. Later. Dante stood, moved to sit on the edge of the bed. Close enough to touch, but he didn't. First, we need to talk about what happens now. My stomach nodded. What do you mean? I mean your father's gone. Your mother's being taken care of. The debt? He paused. The debt is paid, Serafina. You're free to leave whenever you want. The words should have brought relief. Joy. Instead, they felt like a door slamming shut. Just like that? I couldn't read his expression. After everything that's happened, you're just releasing me? I'm giving you a choice. His jaw tightened. Something no one's given you since the night we met. You can walk out that door right now. I'll set you up with money, a new apartment, whatever you need to start over. Or you stay. He finally looked at me, and the vulnerability in his eyes stole my breath. Not as collateral, not as a debt payment, but because you want to. Because this thing between us, whatever it is, might be worth exploring. You're asking me to choose you, willingly? I'm asking you to choose yourself. He reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away. When I didn't, his fingers brushed my cheek. I've taken so much from you already. Your freedom, your father, your innocence about how dark this world really is. I won't take your choice too. My heart hammered against my ribs. What if I choose wrong? Then you choose wrong. But at least it'll be your mistake to make. His thumb traced my lower lip, the gesture achingly familiar now. I need you to understand what you're signing up for, though. If you stay, if you choose this, there's no going back to who you were before. You'll be mine in every way that matters, and people will come for you because of it. Will try to use you against me. Your life will never be safe again. And if I go? Something painful flickered across his face. Then I let you, watch you walk away, and spend the rest of my life wondering what we could have been. The confession hung between us, raw and honest. I thought about my small apartment with its leaky faucet and thin walls. My 2 jobs that barely covered rent. The ordinary, safe life I'd built before a gallery opening changed everything. I could have that back, or some version of it. Could rebuild without the weight of Dante's world pressing down on me. But I also thought about his hands in my hair. The way he'd held me while I cried. The vulnerability he showed only me. The man beneath the monster, complex and broken, and somehow beautiful because of it. I need air, I said. Time to think. Disappointment flashed in his eyes, but he nodded. The gardens are secure, safe. Take all the time you need. I dressed in clothes someone had left folded on a chair. Soft leggings and an oversized sweater that smelled like cedar and smoke. Like Dante. Then I escaped to the gardens, needing space from his gravity to think clearly. The morning was crisp, autumn bleeding into early winter. I walked past manicured hedges and fountains until I found a bench beneath a willow tree, its branches creating a curtain between me and the rest of the world. What did I want? The question should have been simple. Instead, it felt impossible. You look lost. I jumped. A woman stood a few feet away, elegant in a cream pantsuit, her dark hair swept into a perfect chignon. Beautiful in that intimidating, untouchable way. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I didn't mean to startle you, she said. I'm Isabella Romano, an old friend of Dante's. Something about the way she said friend made my skin prickle. Serafina. Oh, I know who you are. She sat on the bench without invitation, crossing her legs with practiced grace. The debt payment who's become something more. It's very romantic, really. Very Beauty and the Beast. I should get back. He'll destroy you, you know. Her voice was conversational, almost kind. That's what Dante does. He takes beautiful things and breaks them. I should know. I was engaged to him once. My breath caught. What? 3 years ago. Before you, there was me. Isabella examined her perfect manicure. I thought I could handle his world. Thought love would be enough. But every day, I watched him become more of a monster and less of a man. The violence, the paranoia, the bodies that kept piling up. She looked at me then, and her eyes were hollow. I left before it killed me. Before I became another casualty of Dante Moretti's war. Why are you telling me this? Because I see the way you look at him, like he's salvageable, like your love can redeem him. She laughed, bitter and sharp. I had that same delusion. And you know what it got me? Nightmares I still wake up from. A fear of commitment so deep I can't trust anyone. And the knowledge that the man I loved chose his empire over me every single time. Dante is exactly what he's always been. A killer in an expensive suit. Isabella stood, smoothing invisible wrinkles from her pants. He's giving you a choice because he thinks it absolves him. Makes him less of a monster if you walk into this cage willingly. But the bars are still there, Serafina. They're just harder to see from the inside. She walked away, leaving me alone with her poison. I sat there for a long time, her words circling my thoughts like vultures. Was she right? Was I deluding myself, seeing redemption in a man incapable of change? Was choosing Dante just choosing a different kind of prison? When I finally returned to the mansion, Mrs. Chen intercepted me in the foyer. Mr. Moretti is with his brother in the medical wing. But Miss Winters? Her expression was unreadable. Miss Romano is not a friend. She paused, choosing words carefully. She's someone with her own agenda. I'd take anything she says with considerable skepticism. Noted. I found Dante in a room that had been converted to a private hospital suite. Luca lay in the bed, still pale but awake, attempting to charm a nurse who looked thoroughly unimpressed. Dante stood by the window, tension radiating from every line of his body. He turned when I entered, and his entire demeanor shifted. Relief flooded his features. Principessa. He crossed to me in 3 strides. Are you... I met Isabella. The words came out flat. He went very still. What did she tell you? That you're incapable of love. That choosing you means choosing destruction. That I'm deluding myself if I think this can work. I looked up at him, searching his face. Is she right? Yes. The admission was brutal in its honesty. Everything she said is probably true. I am dangerous. I am destructive. And loving me has historically been a terminal condition. He cupped my face in both hands. But here's what Isabella didn't tell you. She left because I asked her to. Because I realized I was putting my need for her above her safety, and that was unforgivable. I loved her enough to let her go. And me? My voice shook. If it comes to that, will you love me enough to do the same? No. His eyes burned into mine. Because you're not Isabella. You've seen the worst of me and stayed. You've stood in the ruins of my world and asked how to rebuild. You're not looking for the man I could be. You're choosing the man I am. Flaws and blood and all. That's insane. Completely. A smile ghosted across his lips. But so is standing here, having this conversation, when you could be anywhere else in the world. So tell me, Serafina Winters, what's your choice? I thought about safe apartments and ordinary lives, about Isabella's warnings and the very real danger that came with Dante's world, about every logical reason to walk away. Then I thought about his hands steadying me in the panic room, his broken confession in the foyer, the way he'd spared my father because I'd asked, the man who read philosophy and kept vigil while I slept and looked at me like I was something precious. I choose you, I whispered. God help me, I choose you. The kiss was inevitable, desperate, full of promise and threat, and the terrible certainty that we were both making a beautiful mistake. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, Dante pressed his forehead to mine. No going back now, Principessa. No, I agreed. No going back. From the hospital bed, Luca's voice cut through the moment. Finally, took you too long enough. Now someone please tell the nurse I need more morphine. Preferably administered by Serafina, since she's apparently the family favorite now. Despite everything, the danger, the uncertainty, the weight of the choice I'd just made, I laughed, and Dante smiled. Really smiled, warm and genuine. For better or worse, I was his, and he was mine. The days after my choice blurred together in ways that felt both dangerous and inevitable. Dante was different now, still controlled, still lethal, but with me, something had shifted. He'd touch my hand across the dinner table, pull me into his study just to have me near while he worked, fall asleep with his face buried in my neck, like my presence was the only thing keeping his nightmares at bay. We were dancing around something, circling closer with each passing day. The tension between us had gone from dangerous to incendiary. It was only a matter of time before we burned. 2 weeks after I'd chosen to stay, Dante came to my room at midnight. I was awake, reading in bed, when I heard the soft knock. My heart kicked into overdrive. "Come in." He entered like he belonged there, dressed in nothing but dark pajama pants that hung low on his hips. I'd seen him shirtless before, in the bathroom that first night. But this felt different. Intimate. Intentional. "Can't sleep?" I asked, setting aside my book. "Not without you." The confession was simple, devastating. Every night I lie in that bed and think about how you felt in my arms, how you looked sleeping in my sheets. He moved closer, each step deliberate. I told myself I'd wait. Let you adjust, give you space. But Serafina... He stopped at the edge of my bed, winter eyes burning. "I'm not a patient man." My mouth went dry. "What are you asking?" "I'm asking if you're ready for this, for me, for what it means to truly be mine." His hand reached out, fingers trailing up my bare arm, leaving fire in their wake. "Because once I have you, once we cross this line, I won't be able to let you go. Ever." I should have been frightened by the possessiveness in his voice, the absolute certainty. Instead, heat pooled low in my belly. "Then don't let go," I whispered. Something primal flashed in his eyes. "Serafina?" "I'm sure." I reached for him, pulling him down to sit beside me. "I've been sure since I chose to stay. Maybe even before that. I just needed you to be sure too. I've been sure since the moment I saw you in that gallery." His hand cupped my face with devastating gentleness. "Since before I had any right to want you. Since the first time you looked at me like I was a man instead of a monster." "You're both," I said honestly. "And I want both." The kiss started soft, tentative, like we were learning each other all over again. But it didn't stay soft. His hands threaded through my hair, angling my head to deepen the kiss. His tongue swept against mine, and I tasted whiskey and hunger and 3 months of restrained desire finally unleashed. I pulled him closer, needing to feel his weight, his heat, his realness. He responded by shifting us until I was on my back and he hovered above me, one hand braced beside my head, the other tracing patterns on my hip. "Tell me to stop," he murmured against my lips. "Tell me this is too fast, and I'll walk away. I'll wait as long as you need." "I don't want you to wait." My hands found the hard planes of his chest, feeling his heart thunder beneath my palms. "I want you, Dante. All of you. The monster and the man." He groaned, the sound rough and desperate. "You're going to ruin me." "Good." His mouth found my neck, kissing and tasting and marking me as his. I arched into him, gasping when his teeth grazed my pulse point. Every touch felt electric, overwhelming, like nothing I'd ever experienced. "So beautiful," he whispered against my skin. "So impossibly perfect. And mine. Say it, Serafina. Tell me you're mine." "Yours," I breathed. "I'm yours." His control shattered. What followed was heat and hunger and hands that knew exactly how to make me unravel. He worshipped every inch of skin he exposed, murmuring reverent words in English and Italian that made me feel like something precious, something cherished. When he finally joined our bodies, his eyes locked with mine, and the vulnerability I saw there stole my breath. This wasn't just physical for him. This was surrender. Trust. The most dangerous thing a man like Dante Moretti could offer. "I love you." The words tumbled out of him like a confession. "God help me, I love you, Serafina. And I know I have no right. I know you might not." I pulled his mouth to mine, kissing him with everything I had. I love you too, I whispered against his lips. I love you too. We moved together like we'd been made for this, for each other. Every touch, every kiss, every whispered word built something between us that felt unbreakable. Sacred, even. When we finally collapsed together, breathless and tangled, Dante pulled me against his chest. His heart thundered beneath my ear, gradually slowing to match mine. Stay, he murmured into my hair. Not just tonight. Forever. Stay with me, Principessa. Forever's a long time. Not long enough. His arms tightened around me. I'll spend every day of forever proving I deserve you, protecting you, loving you so completely you'll never doubt it. I tilted my head up to look at him. In the moonlight streaming through the windows, he looked younger, less burdened, almost at peace. What about Isabella's warning? About how this world destroys everything? Then we'll burn together. He kissed my forehead. But I'll make damn sure you burn bright until the very end. It should have sounded ominous. Instead, it sounded like a promise. We lay there in comfortable silence, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on my bare shoulder. I was drifting towards sleep when his phone buzzed on the nightstand. He reached for it, then went very still. What is it? I asked, suddenly alert. Marco. His voice had gone cold and hard. There's been a development, with your father. Ice flooded my veins. What kind of development? He's dead. The words didn't make sense. What? But you said you promised he'd be safe if he broke the terms. Dante sat up, already reaching for his clothes. He went to a casino in Atlantic City 3 days ago. Lost $20,000 that he didn't have. Then he tried to run. His jaw clenched. He was found in his hotel room an hour ago. Overdose. Pills and alcohol. Suicide. My father had killed himself rather than live with the consequences of his choices. I should have felt something. Grief, anger, relief. Instead, I just felt hollow. Serafina. Dante's hand found mine in the darkness. I need you to understand something. I kept my word. My people didn't touch him. This was his choice, his way out. I know. And I did. This was always how it was going to end for my father. He was too broken, too addicted, too willing to take the easy exit. I need to tell my mother. She already knows. Mrs. Chen informed her an hour ago. He paused. She said to tell you she understands, that she's not angry with you, that she hopes you found something worth staying for. Tears burned my eyes. She knows? About us? Mothers always know. He pulled me back against him, holding me while I processed. I can take you to her tomorrow if you want. Let you say whatever you need to say. Thank you. We stayed like that until dawn, him holding me while I grieved for a father I'd already lost long before tonight. For the family that could have been but never was. For the girl I'd been before a gallery opening changed everything. When the sun finally rose, painting the room in shades of gold, Dante tilted my face up to his. I know this isn't how you imagined tonight ending, he said softly. And I'm sorry for that. But Serafina, I meant what I said. I love you, and whatever comes next, we face it together. Together, I agreed. He kissed me then, soft and sweet and full of promise. And despite the grief, despite the uncertainty, despite everything that should have made this feel wrong, it felt exactly right. I'd chosen Dante Moretti, chosen his darkness and his light, his violence and his tenderness, his empire and his heart. And he'd chosen me back. In a world built on transactions and power plays, that felt like the most revolutionary thing of all. Outside the window, the sun continued to rise over Dante's kingdom. Inside his arms, I felt something I'd never expected to find in this beautiful, terrible place. Home. 3 months later, I stood on the balcony of Dante's bedroom, our bedroom now, and watched the city lights flicker like fallen stars against the darkness. So much had changed. Everything had changed. My mother had sold the house and moved into a comfortable apartment near her new treatment facility. The experimental therapy Dante's money had provided was working. Slowly, carefully, but working. She'd held my hand during our last visit and told me she saw happiness in my eyes for the first time in years. She didn't ask questions about how I'd found it. Mothers always know. Luca had recovered fully, though he walked with a slight limp now. He'd appointed himself my personal bodyguard and brother-in-law in waiting, much to Dante's amused irritation. The three of us had become something like a family. Broken and unconventional, but ours. The Volkov territory had been absorbed into Dante's empire. Isabella had disappeared back to whatever life she'd built away from this world. And the mansion had been rebuilt, stronger than before, with security that made Fort Knox look welcoming. But it wasn't the external changes that mattered most. It was the man who came up behind me now, wrapping his arms around my waist and pressing a kiss to my shoulder. The man who still woke from nightmares, but let me hold him through them. Who'd learned to laugh more easily, to trust more deeply, to believe that maybe he could be more than the monster his father's death had created. "You're thinking too loud," Dante murmured against my neck. "I can hear your thoughts from inside." Just reflecting, I leaned back into his warmth, on how different everything is from that night in the gallery. Regrets? Not a single one. I turned in his arms to face him. "You? Only that I didn't see you sooner. Claim you faster." His hands framed my face with that familiar gentleness that still made my breath catch. That I wasted even one day not knowing what it felt like to love you. "Dante Moretti, when did you become such a romantic?" The moment a stubborn woman looked at a monster and decided to see a man instead. He kissed me softly. "You've ruined me for anything less than this, you know. This peace, this certainty. You. Good. That was always the plan." His laugh was warm and genuine. Speaking of plans, a knock interrupted him. Marco's voice came through the door. "Boss, the Chicago delegation is here, 20 minutes early." Dante's expression shifted, not quite the ice I'd seen before, but the businessman ready to negotiate. "Tell them I'll be down in 15. "Copy that." When the footsteps faded, Dante turned back to me. "Business. The Chicago family wants to discuss a partnership. Should take a few hours. I'll be here when you're done." Actually, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small black box. I was going to wait until after the meeting, but I've never been good at patience. My heart stopped. "Dante, let me say this before I lose my nerve." He opened the box, revealing a ring that took my breath away. A blood-red ruby surrounded by diamonds, set in platinum. "This isn't about debt or obligation or any of the reasons we started. This is about choice. My choice to love you. Your choice to love me back despite every reason you shouldn't." He took my hand, his fingers trembling slightly. "Serafina Winters, I'm still a criminal. Still dangerous. Still exactly the kind of man you should run from. But I'm also yours, completely and irrevocably. So I'm asking, will you marry me? Will you choose this life, this empire, this broken man, permanently?" Tears blurred my vision. "You're asking me to be your wife. I'm asking you to be my partner, my equal, the queen to this dark kingdom." His eyes burned into mine. "I'm asking you to build something new with me, something that's ours. To remake this empire into something we can both live with. Because Serafina," his voice cracked, "I don't want to rule this world alone anymore. I want to rule it with you." I thought about the girl who'd walked into that gallery 3 months ago, desperate and lost and drowning in her father's mistakes. She would have run from this moment, would have seen the ring as another chain, another cage. But I wasn't her anymore. Yes, I whispered. Yes to all of it. The empire, the danger, the beautiful disaster that is loving you. Yes. His kiss was fierce and claiming and full of promises we'd spend a lifetime keeping. When he slid the ring onto my finger, it felt like sealing a pact written in starlight and shadow. Mrs. Moretti, he murmured against my lips, has a nice ring to it. Not yet. I smiled through my tears. But soon. Soon, he agreed. After I handle Chicago. After I make sure every family from here to the coast knows you're untouchable. After I prove to you every single day that choosing me wasn't a mistake. It wasn't. I pulled him close. And Dante, I'm going to prove the same thing to you. That being loved doesn't make you weak. That having someone who sees all of you, the darkness and the light, and stays anyway, that's the most powerful thing of all. He held me like I was something precious, something irreplaceable. How did I get this lucky? You bought me at a gallery for a debt you knew my father couldn't pay. Best investment I ever made. Another knock. Boss, 10 minutes. Dante sighed against my hair. Business. Always business. Go. I kissed him once more. Build your empire. I'll be here when you're done, planning our wedding and probably reorganizing your library again. You're perfect. He said it like a prayer. No. I touched his face, memorizing every angle, every scar, every imperfection that made him exactly who he was. But I'm yours, and that's enough. He left reluctantly, pausing at the door to look back at me one last time. His fiancé, his future, his choice. When he was gone, I looked down at the ring on my finger. Ruby like blood, diamonds like tears, platinum like the strength it would take to love a man like Dante Moretti. But I'd learned something in these 3 months. Love wasn't about finding someone perfect. It was about finding someone whose broken pieces fit with yours in ways that made you both whole. About choosing each other every single day. Even when, especially when, the world said you shouldn't. I heard voices downstairs. Dante greeting the Chicago delegation, his tone all business and controlled power. The man the world saw, dangerous, untouchable, feared. But I knew the truth. Knew the man who whispered Italian endearments in the dark, who read philosophy and poetry and tried to find meaning in a world that had shown him mostly cruelty. Who'd learned to love despite every reason not to. That man was mine, and I was his. 6 months ago, my father had sold me to clear a debt, had put me in a car that brought me to this mansion, this life, this dangerous, beautiful man. He'd meant it as a punishment, as a sacrifice. But standing here in Dante's bedroom with his ring on my finger and his empire spread before me, I realized something. This wasn't a cage. It was a kingdom. And I wasn't a prisoner. I was a queen. The meeting downstairs would last hours. Plans would be made, territories negotiated, power consolidated. Dante would handle it all with the same ruthless efficiency that had built his empire. But when it was over, he'd come back to me, to our room, to our bed, to the life we were building together from blood and starlight, and the impossible choice we'd both made. To love anyway. To stay anyway. To build something beautiful from the ruins of who we'd been before. I looked out at the city one more time. Dante's domain, stretching as far as I could see. Lights and shadows, danger and opportunity, violence and hope all tangled together. Tomorrow, I'd visit my mother. Would tell her about the engagement, watch her smile despite everything. Would hold her hand and know that some prices were worth paying, some debts worth owing, some choices worth making even when they looked like mistakes. Tomorrow, I'd start planning a wedding that would unite two worlds, legitimate and criminal, light and shadow, the woman I'd been, and the woman I'd become. Tomorrow, I'd begin learning everything I needed to know to truly be Dante's partner in this empire. The business, the politics, the delicate balance of power and fear that kept his kingdom standing. But tonight? Tonight, I would wait for my future husband to finish his meeting. Would fall asleep in his arms, safe in the knowledge that whatever came next, we'd face it together. The debt that brought me here was paid. But the life it had given me? That was just beginning. Somewhere in the mansion, I heard Dante's laugh, low and genuine, probably at something Luca had said. The sound made me smile. I'd offered myself to clear a family debt. The Mafia boss had smirked and said I was worth more than money. He'd been right. I was worth everything. And so was he.